The legendary Iron Maiden vocalist Paul Di'Anno has passed away today. And no, as much as I'd like it to be, this is not just some clickbait news. This is unfortunately true. And yes, I just got out of the chat with Paul's manager Stjepan Juras, who's been taking care of Paul Di'Anno for the last couple of years. And sadly, he did not only confirm this news, of course, but also said that he's already working on the funeral. And despite whatever some people have been saying online, this has actually come as a huge shock for everyone close to Paul Di'Anno and everyone who has worked closely with the legendary vocalist lately. But at least Paul, who, as we all know, have been traveling quite heavily lately despite his condition, passed not on the road but in his home in Salisbury, England at the age of 66 years old. Just weeks before he was supposed to kick off yet another European tour and perform the Iron Maiden classics in front of his loyal fan base around the globe.
We're out on tour again, which has been fucking brilliant. You saved my life. Thank you, guys.
Despite being troubled by severe health issues in recent years that restricted him to performing in a wheelchair, Paul continued to entertain his fans around the world, racking up well over 100 shows since 2023, said Paul's label Conquest Music in their statement. And here's the craziest thing, and we kind of didn't want to advertise it much yet at least, but a couple of weeks before he passed away, Paul Di'Anno actually said that he wants to perform in Ukraine. And despite the whole fact that he's traveling around the world and fundraising for his own health, wanted to perform a charity concert and support all of his Ukrainian fans. And Stjepan and myself have been actually in talks about planning this concert for the 10th of December this year. Yet this of course will not happen, but it does show that Paul Di'Anno, no matter what anyone said, simply lived for rock and roll, his legacy, and his loyal fans. Now, as we all expected, Iron Maiden and their leader Steve Harris have already shared their statement regarding Paul's passing. We're deeply saddened to learn about the passing of Paul Di'Anno earlier today. Paul's contribution to Iron Maiden was immense and helped set us on the path we have been traveling as a band for almost 5 decades. His pioneering presence as a frontman and vocalist, both on stage and on our first 2 albums, will be very fondly remembered not just by us, but by the fans around the world. After which Steve Harris, who, just as a reminder, has reunited with Paul Di'Anno just several years ago after not speaking and not seeing Paul for many years before that, said the following: "It's just so sad he's gone. I was in touch with him only recently as we texted each other about West Ham and their ups and downs. At least he was still gigging until recently. It was something that kept him going, to be out there whenever he could. He will be missed by us all. Rest in peace, mate." And here Steve actually says something very important. Those Iron Maiden fans who have been following Paul Di'Anno's career since his departure from Iron Maiden do know about all the hardships this legendary vocalist, of course, has gone through, especially in the last decade or so. And in the past several years, and it may sound very strange, but actually since that time that he started moving around in a wheelchair, his career and persona has started being on the radar once again much more oftenly than he did before. In fact, some may say that he actually has found a new purpose in life. And in all honesty, all Paul Di'Anno fans, of course, have to give kudos to Paul's ex, I guess now, manager Stjepan Juras, who has done a great job in helping Paul make sense of his life in his recent years. As most Iron Maiden fans, of course, do know, for the last several years, Paul Di'Anno has been actively touring around the world in order to fundraise some money to finally be able to stand up and walk once again, as he's been receiving treatment in Croatia for the last several years. And recently, just in 2022, after a very long break, Paul Di'Anno has finally reunited with his old mate Steve Harris before an Iron Maiden concert in Zagreb, Croatia. And even more so, a couple of months ago, Paul Di'Anno has met, allegedly for the very first time ever, together with Bruce Dickinson, and the 2 legendary Iron Maiden vocalists had a friendly chat, which has spiked so many rumors about a possibility of Paul Di'Anno walking up on stage and performing with his old band sometime in the future one more time as a part of the band's celebration of their long-lasting legacy. Yet, of course, sadly, this will no longer be possible. as Paul has gone to heaven to jam with his old buddy, Clive Burr. Just as it was expected, of course, in the last couple of hours, the internet has been simply flooded by the words of tribute to the legendary late now Paul Di'Anno by pretty much everyone you can imagine. Honestly, there is no even need to recite everything that has been said. Even just naming all of the musicians and bands that have voiced their support already would take hours, most likely. And this, of course, is very understandable, because the truth is that no matter whether you like Paul Di'Anno era of Iron Maiden more, or Bruce Dickinson or Blaze Bayley era of Iron Maiden more, one thing is absolutely clear. The first two albums Paul Di'Anno has recorded together with Iron Maiden made the band who they are today. They kicked off the career of one of the greatest heavy metal bands on the planet, and it is thanks to Paul Di'Anno and his very unique way of fronting a band that Iron Maiden were able to stand out from the rest of the new wave of British heavy metal bands in the early 80s. As Paul was much more than just a singer. In fact, some may argue that his voice was by far not the strongest out of the other new wave of British heavy metal acts, but it was the way he was able to blend this early punk rock aggression with the melodic sound of heavy metal of the time that has helped Steve Harris and the boys put Iron Maiden on the map. And without those iconic and groundbreaking first two albums, Iron Maiden would never have had that solid foundation that they were able to build upon later on in their career, becoming one of the greatest heavy metal bands to ever walk the earth. Although I guess we do have to point out that the other Iron Maiden vocalist, Blaze Bayley, did say the following. Very sad to hear of the death of my friend Paul Di'Anno. Paul and I did quite a few tours and concerts together over the years. Sweden rock, Ukraine, Australia, Scandinavia. He had a great sense of humor, and those were crazy times. His voice and his music with Iron Maiden and his own projects will live on. Fondly remembered, sadly missed. Rest in peace. So yes, sadly this is true. Paul Di'Anno is gone, and with him the entire era of Iron Maiden, an entire era of heavy metal is gone as well. And yes, Paul was a very straightforward person who pissed off so many because of his straightforwardness. He might have made some bad decisions, he might have did some wrong things, but he did live his life to the fullest. And once again, he did give us an incredible gift of Iron Maiden and Killers. So all we as Iron Maiden and Paul Di'Anno fans can do today is just blast those two albums as well as his solo work as loud as we possibly can. And what I really hope that we can do is remember Paul in his prime. Remember him as a crazy running around the stage and giving us a gift of heavy metal. So thank you for your music, the legacy, and for being such a kick-ass legend, Paul Di'Anno.